So one thing I could try to do is just take this measurement, assume that we're basically square, and run table saw times right up that. If we can get this to behave here, I want to make sure this is about where we want it. I want to get this lined up pretty good. And then we want to say that this ideally should come to about there. And then we can cut in that way. Because if I can just rip straight up there and then go over, and that actually fits, that about makes my week. You know what? I might just have to go and take a personal moment after this because that is pretty great. We might redo it just to bring this back a little bit so we can bring that in just a hair more at the end. But the straightness of it is satisfying. So that's a little bit better there. And if we can get these to stick together, I think we'll be pretty close to okay. Well, I got that in one.
The keen-eyed among you might notice that instead of using the router table that I borrowed from Santa, I'm using my palm router instead. I spent at least 40 minutes trying to get Santa's router table to work properly, but with how much it wanted to fight me, I decided it would be better to just get back to work.
That looks basically perfect. This part is not great because I don't have much surface to hold on to keep it from wobbling too much. So what can I do about that?
What I decided to do about that was to build myself a little bit of a jig or support or whatever you want to call this monstrosity that I'm putting together here. I used a couple of pieces of MDF to raise the flooring piece off the work surface because of the nut on the end of the router bit. Then added the same thickness pieces with a bit of scrap flooring opposite to finish off the support.
Well, we might want to not clamp this one quite so close in, but you get the idea. Now I've got a very, very flat surface I can run against for this, and it's just a matter of fussing that depth. And the big problem I'm hoping it'll solve is this nonsense here. So if I can cut a groove like I've got in the original hardwood, then I can run my spline. I've got groove on the back of all my stair nosing. So if I can put a spline in between, that should, if I can mill the spline properly and mill this thing properly, that should hold it at exactly the same even height. So that is a good thickness, but I think it's too wide. So if we get that in there, and we do this and have that be pretty solid, I think we can. So now those should have a very, well, a more secure, it's not quite as secure as I'd like it, but it's more secure top position there. And we can finally get a little bit of an idea of how much of a waste of time was all of this splining effort. So that has it lifted up a bit here. We're good to this point, but I think something wobbled a little bit with the routing. So we'll just pop this guy here, keep that in there. We will have to fill this in with a bit of stuff. Might need to get a clamp on here.
Once I was satisfied that corner wasn't going to really get any better, then it was just back to doing the same sort of stuff that I've been doing the whole time. I did have to cut in one more vent, so that's what we're doing here, and then everything else was just glue it up, lay it down, rinse and repeat. Here's a time lapse of the weather. I didn't bother to cut around this vent and make it all nice and pretty because it was going to end up underneath the kitchen cabinets. I personally prefer to make sure the flooring goes all the way to the walls instead of put the cabinets in first and then bring the flooring up to it. It costs a little bit more material, but it's easier to install. It's future-proofing for the kitchen if anyone wants to make a change. It's easier to install cabinets over an even floor than cutting floors around cabinets and plinths. It even makes toe kicks easier to install when you're finally doing the cabinets.
Yeah, tomorrow will be the great reorganization.
Aside from cleanup, my floors are now done. I did have to get someone to CNC me some vent covers, but since I didn't do that work, I don't have anything to show. I will say that, in the future, if I have to correct the subfloor as much as I did for this one, I'll be doing it very differently. Having to glue down instead of nail down the finished floor probably doubled or tripled the time that it took.